It's protein time. When you hit the gym, you tear it. We need to get a crew to come in and repair it. I want you to picture something.
Let's get lean and mean with some protein. Time to tear and repair.
It's protein time. Today, I want you to take a look in the mirror. I want you to assess your physique and see what you see. Now, I want you to picture something. Coach Aaron right now is throwing a flex at us. Muscle is definitely a big part of your journey and what you're going to see in the mirror. If you love your body and you love what you're seeing in there, it's going to be more aesthetically pleasing if you've got muscle mass. There's one macronutrient responsible for that, and that's going to be the topic of today's conversation. Protein. Protein is what we're here to talk about today on the next episode of the Ultimate Man podcast. So welcome to the show. I also want you to now visualize a natural disaster that has taken place and wiped out everything in sight. There's going to be a crew that have to come in to clean up the mess and rebuild everything that's been destroyed. I believe in my analogy world that protein is that worker. It is that rebuilder. Protein, the more we bring in, it's like having more workers there to clean up the disasters we create on a daily basis. When you hit the gym, you tear it. We need to get a crew to come in and repair it. If you're not eating protein, you're not getting repair. Therefore, you're going to see more of that image in the mirror that you don't like. Let's get you looking like Coach Aaron right there with the rolled up sleeve and that bicep flex. And that's what we want to see for everybody out there. So gentlemen, listen to the podcast. Get your notepads ready. Today is going to be badass. We're going to be bringing you a topic that is going to hit home to everyone out there. Protein is the topic of the day. Coach Aaron, how you doing, brother?
Let's get lean and mean with some protein. Time to tear and repair. I love the rhymes, brother. Love the rhymes and analogies.
It's what we're all about. Our listeners know that they can come here for some laughs and some good times and a nice overview of real life application from us and get some good rhymes from Coach Aaron, some analogies from myself, and then we'll mix and match. I think we're even rubbing off on each other a little bit. I'm starting to rhyme things out of the blue and I don't even realize it till after I've said it.
Most definitely.
Yeah, there it is. And of course, you got some great analogies too. So it goes both ways. Awesome. So today, protein is the key. Now, both of us, we are in the Summer Shred program. Summer Shred, for those of you who don't know, you've been under a rock, you haven't been listening to our podcast, get caught up, gentlemen. Today, we are involved in our first week. Coach Aaron's been leaning out, shredding it out. I've been leaning it out. We got guys in the program who are with us leaning it out right now. So guys who are listening, shout out to you guys for being badass, stepping up to the plate and doing Summer Shred with us. There's still some room if anyone else wants to get in there. It's not too late. We're only 1 week in. So there's room for another 11 weeks of your development as well. Get excited about making change. But the thing we're talking about today is what we're going to be focusing on in the second week of our program. So the guys listening in the program, it's protein time. Time to get it moving up. So Coach Aaron's been hitting the gym, getting that workout in there, getting leaner, and making sure that protein's a main staple in his diet. So we talked about the natural disaster cleanup, protein. So when you go in the gym and you hit that killer workout, you got a natural disaster of torn muscle fibers going on. How much protein would you say you're having to bring into the body at this point, Coach? Are you basing it on a certain like an equation, or how are you going about getting the protein in how much amount you're taking in?
Yeah, I keep mine super simple. I go with the 1 pound at a minimum, one gram per pound of lean body mass of lean body mass. So I'm like 210-ish, give or take right now, 207 this morning, down from like 215 just like a week or two ago. So I'm already making substantial progress there. So, 207 grams, that's not all lean body mass. So I figure if I get at least 200 grams at a minimum, I'm doing pretty good, but I usually pretty much well exceed that as well. So I usually hit anywhere between 1 to 1.5 grams, even now that I'm cutting up a little bit, and we might talk about this later. If you're in more of a cut, you might want to boost that protein intake up even more than just like a maintenance level.
Great advice. I love that. And I love that you talked about something we'll be coming up there is when we talk about specific needs for different phases. We talk a lot about periodization in our weight training programs because we don't want to hit those plateaus. But remember, metabolic adaptation is a real thing. The body will adapt metabolically to what you're doing with your calories. It can also meet the demands, and you're going to have to make some changes along the way, depending what phase you're in, which Coach Aaron was just alluding to. When it comes time for a cut, there's obviously a need for a calorie deficit. But in that, we want to make sure that we spare as much muscle as possible. And we get too many people who go into these cuts and attack this low calorie approach and destroy all the muscle that they worked so hard to build. And it's like, man, that's terrible because you didn't bring any of that cleanup crew in. We need even more cleanup crew because of the amount of stress. Realize that workouts are a stress that you're intentionally putting on the body. Then there's the stress of a calorie deficit. That too is a stress. And then with all that stress comes cortisol, trying to balance things out in the bloodstream. I mean, you start to create a recipe for an absolute disaster with no repair. Protein is now needed more than ever, right?
Yeah.
So
Then you get the guys that are skinny fat because they've been in a calorie deficit. They're getting skinnier, they're getting leaner, but they're losing muscle tissue at the same time. So they're skinny fat. And that's not a good thing.
exactly. I've got so many great notes here just to keep our conversation on track. So people watching the show, I'm going to be bouncing some ideas off Coach Aaron here, looking down at the notes a little bit to make sure we're covering so many of the great topics. We talked about the tissue repair benefit. We just talked about the weight loss, obviously, getting into that point where there's a calorie deficit and then there's the stress. Also, the fact of satiety. When we talk about feeling full, Coach Aaron, when you have your protein in your meal, do you notice the satiation, like the satiety feeling that you're full for a longer period of time when you have high protein food? Or do you find that like a high carb meal leaves you full longer? What is your take on that?
Yeah, protein is so much more satiating. I've actually been playing with my diet a little bit just because I like to tinker with it now and then. Like when I was doing my bulk recently, I was doing like 5 to 6, smaller meals a day. And I had a lot more carbohydrates in those meals, as well as protein, keeping that pretty constant as well. And then now that I'm doing a little bit more of a cut, I kind of like to back off on the meal frequency as much. So I'm not going to be having 6 meals a day. I might be going down to like 3 or 4 meals a day, even. But in those, say I'm having 3 meals today, just kind of for a little experimentation, and I had a full pound of protein this morning, a full pound of meat. So that's going to leave me satiated for way longer. Like if I just had a high carbohydrate meal, 2 to 3 hours later, I'd probably already be feeling ravenous again because it spikes the blood sugar. And then you're like, I need some more food. Now that I had that really substantial protein meal for breakfast, I'll last an easy 5 or 6 hours before I need to have my second meal of the day. So that's kind of a cool thing if you don't want to have to be like feeding yourself all the time.
Hmm. Nice. I like that. So guys listening, think about that. How many times a day are you eating? And making protein the staple is going to leave you full for those times in between. So you don't feel the need to have to eat so many meals, which is really important. We've got one fella in the program right now with us. This gentleman is consuming about 4,000 calories on his amount of need for his calorie demands. And so some people listening to this are going 4,000. That's crazy. Here's what we want you to also know: protein, and this is important. All foods need to take energy to actually digest and break down. There's a thermic effect of food. So protein has shown to say 20 to 30% of its calories are actually used to digest its own protein breakdown. So the thermic effect of breaking down protein takes even more energy than it does to break down carbs or fats. That's good to know because if it's going to spend more energy breaking it down and digesting it, you're going to actually get a better deficit by having more protein as your focus in the way of the thermic effect of food having more impact on you. So you're feeling full longer and you're getting more metabolic use, more burn out of that, but for the breakdown purpose, which I think is super cool. And then I'm thinking about this guy getting to 4,000 calories. Obviously, he's not going to eat 4,000 calories of protein. It's going to have a well-balanced meal where carbohydrates and fats are used, but protein still has to be the basis of it. Now, there's also the fact that there's different types of protein, which we're going to get into as well, where we talk about some of them are lean proteins, some of them are a little bit more fatty proteins, depending what source you get them from. But I just want to ask Coach Aaron here, in your staple of what you're doing right now, are your protein sources mostly on the lean side, or are you using some of the fattier protein choices?
Right now, we're at the beginning of our summer shred. So we've got 12 weeks that we're going through it. So mine at the time being are still kind of like, moderate. I'll switch it up a little bit. Like for the next couple weeks, I'll probably still have more of like, grass-fed, lean ground beef, which is like 93%, or some chicken or some turkey or some salmon. So I'm still including some fatty. I mean, there's some fat in even the 93% lean ground beef has still got a substantial amount of fat in it. Like 96 grams for the whole day if I have my protein allotment. and then fatty salmon and stuff. So getting some good sources in there too. And then as I get further along in the summer shred, I'll start cutting back on the fatty sources and just start leaning down the protein sources as well.
Beautiful. That's good. So there you go, guys. You're getting a look inside the way we're doing it right now. And that's great value, whether you're in our program or not. You're going to get some base coaching right here by listening to the podcast. So the next thing I want to ask is a bit of a myth and a misconception. And again, a bit of a truth too. There's this eating window, this anabolic window that we get talked about. Everybody's talking about. You do your workout, you've got 30 minutes to consume your protein, or you got to get that shake within that first hour, or else you've destroyed all your results. Coach Aaron, have you seen that? Do you know what I'm talking about there in the way of like, has it been disproved or believed? Where do you stand on that? How does it look for you at this point?
Yeah, so definitely in the past, that was definitely like the tried and true staple. Like you finish your workout, get your protein in right away. So here's kind of what my stance on it now. If you're doing your workout fasted, like you're doing a fasted workout first thing in the morning, then you probably, as soon as you finish your workout, probably want to get in some more immediate protein sources, like some whey protein or something pretty soon after the workout, because you've been fasting all night long. You don't have any reserves already in the tank. But if you've had a meal within like the last 3 or 4 hours or something, then you go work out. It's not as crucial at that point to get something into your system right away, from my understanding. So,
Mm.
like if I finish my workout, I don't, and I just had a pre-meal workout before that, I don't need to eat for 3 to 4 hours is probably sufficient. If you get something in that 3 to 4 hour window post workout, you've still got plenty of protein reserves and fuel in your system, and you're not like missing your anabolic window.
Nice. I love it, man. And that aligns with all of the science that I've been seeing as well. So, based on our experience, we were victim to the old adage of get that protein in that first hour or you missed your window. That was the old school. That was the old days. But the science is now showing that Coach Aaron's dead on. The fasting approach may leave you in a higher need for it right after your workout versus if you've been fed going in. So that is a great distinction there. I'm glad you brought that up, brother. The other thing was I was just listening to a little bit of work with Andy Galpin, and those of you who are checking out his page, great information there, folks. One of the ones that I like to go to for the science side of things. But he was talking about the absorption rate, and there's truth to the eating window because of the absorption rate. And I was like, now that makes sense. So, I mean, we know that a lot of times information is taken from a study, and then one particular aspect of it is kind of focused on, emphasized, and made to be like a law or a principle. And so, what his take was, what it sounded like to me, was that the absorption rate is at its highest right after your workout. And of course, it's going to diminish over time. That diminishing factor, I probably wouldn't push past 3 hours, like you were just saying, 3 to 4. I think that you're diminishing its absorption rate by that point. But what we're saying is that there is truth that the absorption rate's at its highest right afterwards. The body's hungry for it, it's ready to take it in. So it's not like you have to get it in right away, but the absorption rate may be higher. Are we splitting hairs there at that point? Yes, it could just be a matter of, is it an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours? How much really got absorbed in like it will diminish, but obviously don't wait 6 hours after, like keep it within that 3 hour window and you'll be just fine. But what he was getting at there was the absorption rate. And I think that's where they took that information and said, if the absorption's best in that first hour, you need to get your protein in the first hour. And then they made that the priority, not talking about absorption, but just talking about eating window. Right. So I think that that's where there's so much information and noise in this space that as coaches, we want to try to break it down and make it something you can understand in a more simplistic way. So understand that a lot of times you'll hear something from someone's camp that supports their argument, and then they'll take that information and skew it and change the focus of it. And it's not that they're wrong, it's just that they want it to align more with their style of what they're trying to get across as their message or their narrative. So we're trying to tell you, you can eat up to 3 hours after your workout, but understand that there is an absorption rate that is true to the human body, and your protein will be absorbed mostly right after workout, but it doesn't mean you're, do or die. It's not the end all be all of whether you get your protein in there or not. So that's my side of the take on it, which is sounding like it's completely in alignment with Coach Aaron as well. How do you feel about that, brother?
Good, good. Yeah, and I just keep it simple. Like I think about, I like to be more digested when I do my more intense to have a meal maybe a couple hours before my workout so that it's pretty much digested. I'm not working training on a full stomach. And then my workouts generally last an hour long. So there's 2 hours after my meal, and there's another 1 hour. So there's 3 hours after a meal. And then so if I eat probably 1 to 2 hours after my workout, I'm staying within that good time frame where I am utilizing and replenishing more efficiently, I think too. So yeah.
Excellent. Um, I love that you talk about the pre-workout part of it because a lot of people don't eat before the workout, and then there's a few people who prefer only to eat before workout. I like to go by feel too, like personal preference. I always say if I want to perform light in my workout, like say I'm going to do some shadow boxing or we're talking MMA or boxing, right? If I want to feel light, I would either go fasted or I would have something very light, like protein shake, piece of fruit. You know, what I mean, if I want the nutrients there, but I don't want to feel that really heavy stomach, I'll go and create a meal that's feeling actually pretty light the way it digests. Then there's the complex carb. There's the proteins of like higher, like steak and ground beef and things that just seem to take longer to digest. They're heavier. They are more satiety based, like the satiating feeling of being full. And then you get that heavy belly. Now I feel like a power truck. You know what I mean? Like I'm gonna plow through things, but I'm not gonna move very fast. So think about the workout you're doing. And I like to base it on that. You know, if I want to go in and lift some big numbers, I want to put up some big weight, I want to feel strong. It's not going to be cardio based at all. I'm looking for strength gain. I definitely want to go into that fed and I want to go into it feeling like I want to feel like a tank who can push some power. But if I want to be light on my feet, I want to be moving quick, I want to be athletic, maybe I'm doing plyometric work and whatever it is, I would prefer to be either fasted or very light on my feet with a light meal in my belly. What do you think of that, Coach? Have you used that type of effect on yourself, or does it sound like we're on track there?
Yeah, totally. I think my internet was getting a little wonky there. So sorry if I froze for a little bit. But yeah, same thing. If I would be going into jujitsu class, rolling or doing some kickboxing or something like that, I would definitely want to err on the lighter side of just having a little protein shake, maybe some fruit, like you said. So maybe a little carbohydrate in it for a little sustained energy if I was doing like a long training session or something. Definitely nothing heavy before that.
Nice. Yeah, perfect. Right on line with it. It's good. And so this was all in our first segment of the podcast episode today under understanding protein. So, man, if you got value out of this, get in the chat box for us. Put in the comments. Let us know that we're hitting you with some good information here. Put a few fire emojis or whatever. Let us know you're out there. Okay, guys, we're listening
Hit
to
that,
some.
hit that like and subscribe if you dig our
That's it.
vibe.
Let's get that community built up there. We want guys out there to know this is your safe place. This is your brotherhood. This is your community. We're doing this for you. We want to give you that level of coaching here. And so in segment number 2, we talk about protein for weight loss or muscle building. Now, we were kind of touching on a lot of the subjects, so a lot of this is going to be a rehash. But when we talk about protein-rich foods that could help you feel full and satiety based, like the satiating ones, what do you say is your most filling protein, Coach Aaron? What would you use as like the most satiety if you had to kind of rank your top one? What do you think hits you the hardest?
I really like, I mean, well, it's not only because it's protein, but it's got a lot of fat in it too. Like some good cuts of some salmon or some ribeye or something like that. So it's got some protein and some good fats in it too. Those will just, last you for a long time.
Nice. And what would you say falls on the lightest side if you're going that light belly feeling, hits the protein, but doesn't have any real satiety feeling to it? What do you think that would be?
That would be more on just like some straight old chicken breasts or some like, white fish, like some tilapia or
Yeah.
something like that. Stuff that I'll get into and more of the shredding down part of the cut.
Right. I love it, man. For me, I'm gonna say egg whites falls on that spectrum
Oh yeah.
of light. Holy man, I eat egg whites and I'm like, I could just keep, if it's a pump you're using or if it's the liquid egg white squirt there, whatever, like pouring it out. I feel like I could just go cup after cup of that. It doesn't fill me up to the point, but it does say the satiety is there once it's in your system. It just feels really light for me. Like I find that one is super light. So egg white is definitely on the light side of things. And the other would be protein shake or protein replacement. I find if I want to go light belly, a protein shake feels like it's not even there. It's more liquid, right? So
Yeah.
how many shakes a day are you using to give us an idea of your shake supplementation?
Usually at the moment on workout days, I'll do probably 1 to 2 shakes a day. Yeah, like this morning I did my cardio this morning, and I don't like to necessarily do it completely fasted at the moment. I might do that later on in the cut, but for the moment, I'm doing some protein, some carbs, like an intro workout basically. So I'm getting some stuff during the workout. So I'll have one then, and then if I do, sometimes I'll do double days. Like I'll go back in the afternoon and do my strength training then, and then I'll probably have also like an intro workout type shake then.
Cool. So you're
So
even bringing
like one
protein.
to two.
Yeah, and you're bringing protein in mid workout too. You're getting it in there. I love it. And again, remember we
Oh
talked about
yeah, yeah. I got like an IV drip going. IV drip, baby.
the natural disaster. He's got cleanup crew all day long. I love it. And so
Yeah.
that brings me to a really important part here for protein for weight loss. We were talking about consistent feedings and maybe like 4 consistent feedings through the day. Some people are still taking 6, whatever it be. But the end result is you want to hit that protein goal at the end of the day. And in order to do that, one of the notes here that I've got is that you should look to consume protein in every meal. That way, there, it's always a staple. You start your meal by building it with protein first, and then fill in the blanks around the protein. Um, this is absolutely detrimental when it comes to keeping that thermic effect of food high. Of course, we talked about that already, and meeting your goal. So you end up ahead of the game and not having to play catch up at the end of the day, going, holy shit, I've still got 60 grams of protein to consume. What am I going to do? I'm done eating. I've got no more room for meals. And you end up having to pound back a double scoop shake to get your protein goal in there. So, Coach Aaron, when you're doing your eating throughout the day, do you plan your meal around the protein right away, or do you already have a set of meal prep where your proteins are all laid out? Are you Tupperwaring along the way? How are you doing your protein prep, or how many grams are you getting per meal?
I'm not gonna give away all my secrets, bro. Come
I
on.
know, I
You're
know.
asking me all the deep secrets. Okay. Why the hell not? Jesus. Okay. Um, so I get my internet cut out. Apologies, but I you basically am I just Tupperwaring it, or like how much am I having per meal type thing? You said,
Yeah,
right?
like a rough guide. First of all, are you Tupperwaring it so you don't even have to think about it, like the protein's already
Yeah.
done? Yeah.
Yeah, it's already done, dude. I got all my meals already prepped for the day. So today I'm doing I got like, 3 meals prepped. So I got 3 big meals prepped, and I literally cooked like 3 pounds of meat this morning. So I have 1 pound per meal for each of 3 meals. Normally I have more than that. Normally I have like 4 or 5, but I'm just kind of experimenting now that I'm doing. I'd like to experiment a little bit with my body and see, if I have that more protein per meal, maybe that's going to leave me satiated more longer. So I don't have to worry about, feeding myself as frequently during the day. Sometimes on busy days, it's nice just to have a big meal and not have to worry about it for several hours. So
Mhm.
that's kind of cool. But I definitely have my all of my meals prepped. So I've got my guaranteed protein, quota for the day already met. And then if I throw a little protein shake once or twice a day on top of that, if I have an intro workout, then I'm like way above and beyond my protein requirement. And then I can just adjust my fats and carbs accordingly to make sure I'm still staying within my caloric allotment.
Nice. I like it. I like how you danced around not giving away all your secrets too. Good job. He was laying out that the obviously if what I'm hearing, what I'm picking up, what you're putting down here is the Tupperwaring and the pre meal prep has really been a solution to keeping consistent, hitting your protein goal, and then filling in the blanks with a shake or a supplement when needed in between. So that's great advice. Obviously, a lot of what I'm not sharing is because Aaron is doing the exact same thing I'm doing. So I'm just, I'm following along the same lines of the same thing. Having meal prep, I can say in the fridge right now, there's a big Tupperware full of ground beef. There's another one with 6 chicken breasts in it. And again, when you go to buy your chicken breasts, you might want to, if I mean, depending, again, you might be calling it splitting hairs here, but if you put them on the kitchen scale, you'll notice they're not all the same size. So you're trying to look for a certain amount of maybe ounces of chicken each time you're getting your meal. If you can kind of stay in the ballpark, then you're going to be okay for the protein. But I get a lot of guys who will come in and go, I had a chicken breast for lunch. And I'll say, okay, well, that's interesting. Like, did you track it, right? And they'll say, no, I didn't track it. I'll say, can you do me a favor, just weigh it and check it? And when they get to like checking 3 different chicken breasts, like, oh, dude, they were like, one was 6 ounces, one was 7.2, the other one was only 4.5 ounces. And so if you look at 4.5 ounces of chicken and 7.2 ounces of chicken, there's a big difference in the amount of protein contained in those 2 chicken breasts. right? So I want to make sure that anyone listening to this understands that when you're tracking foods, it's important to remember that the size does determine the nutritional value. So if the size of your chicken breast determines the amount of protein in it, you got to make sure you understand what size that chicken breast is if they're all about the same. So I got a container about 6 of them, but I do weigh them individually just to make sure when I'm putting it into my journal and I'm tracking it that I've got the right amount of ounces on it so that my fitness pal can do the work for me and tell me how much protein I actually consumed in 7.2 ounce chicken breast versus 4.5, let's say, right? So, and again, some people might be like, that's too much work for me. Then just make sure the old adage of, the palm of your hand should be about the size of that protein serving. If you want to keep it real simple and just eyeball it, then at least make sure you're consistent with that. And if it's a chicken breast that's 2 sizes of your fist, that's a big beast, right? You might want to consider cutting that in half, make 2 servings of it. Or if, depending on your needs, you're as big as Coach Aaron, you're going to need probably that whole handful of chicken. So I got ground beef, I got chicken, I got a carton or 2 of egg whites ready to go as well. So I can use egg whites to bring up the protein there. So those are some tips and strategies that I'm using. But meal prep, like you said, Coach Aaron, is such a lifetime saver. It saves time. It saves a headache of wondering. It just takes so much of that guessing out of the game. So I like that you're already doing the Tupperware approach. And
Yeah. How many ounces do you have at a time usually per meal?
most of my meals are falling in around 6 ounces of protein.
Hmm.
There's a few that I will consume depending on which protein I'm using that might hit the 7 to 8 ounces. Or if I
Hmm.
have found that I've planned it for my pre or post workout, which I want to feel heavier for, I might use 8 or 9 ounces of protein prior to that workout where I want to go in feeling heavier and stronger. And then later on in the day, I may taper some of those down to 4 or 5 ounces to make up my difference as well. So one of the science, things I was looking at was, is there a benefit to having a consistently low amount of protein, let's say 25 grams of protein per meal, or is there a benefit to having a bolus of protein where you've got 100 grams of protein in one given meal? And the science was more showing it didn't really matter as long as at the end of the day you consumed your protein. So I thought, well, it doesn't really matter how you play with it. It's more of a how you feel. But I always think about the digestion factor, right? Can I digest
Hmm.
6 ounces to 10 ounces? Is that reasonable? How do I feel? So I make a lot of notes on the intuitiveness of am I in the game when I feel like, is it making me tired? Am I getting kind of brain foggy? Am I down and out for a while the calories are digesting, that particular thing? So I find I'm really good with that 6 to 8 range of ounces of given, protein in that particular source. Does that answer that question? I hope I didn't veer off too much.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. Yeah. That's I usually have like 8 ounces is my go-to for the most part. Like I said, today I had like a full pound, 16 ounces in one sitting, and I felt digestion was fine. And like you said, I think it's just, the important thing for our guys to remember is just that make sure you're getting that protein allotment for the whole day is the most important. So if you have 4 to 5 ounces at one meal and you have 8 or 10 at the next meal, don't worry about it. I mean, if you can track it and measure it, like all the better. But just make sure you're getting in that total for the day.
I love that. Yeah, it's important. And for the guys in our summer shred program, here's another bonus, right? You're going to be on a Monday night call with us. So Coach Aaron and I are going to take your nutrition. We're going to dive deep into that to make sure you're hitting your goals. So a lot of people out there are wondering, well, what is my goal? There's calculators online you can use to try to kind of get a feel for it. But Coach Aaron threw it out there already. If you go based on about a gram per pound of body weight, it gives you a pretty good start point of the ultimate goal. And then you can adjust from there based on needs and factors, which we're going to talk a little bit more about as well. But for the guys in the program, don't worry, don't stress. We're here to take that away from you. We're going to be working with you on Monday nights to cover that. So keep listening to our podcast. Anyone who's not in our program, try to get this, down to a science where you're taking in that protein. The next thing I want to talk about is protein in optimal health and aging. So this was interesting because I've got a bit of a story to tell, just so that we can kind of structure or pre-frame the importance of protein as an aging population. We know that as the body gets older, we do lose muscle mass. That's inevitable. The body does have a degrading of muscle mass as we age. They say over the age of 40, you lose, what is it, a percent per year? Or I forget how they break it down. There's some science behind. And again,
Yeah.
we're not here to be the science podcast. If you want that, there's some Huberman Lab out there, and there's some good ones. We mentioned Annie Galpin and Lane Norton. These guys really study science. But we want to make sure that what Aaron and I are talking about is experience. So listen to this story real quick, and then I'm going to get Aaron's feedback on this as well. But I had a client reach out to me, which was a current client of mine, and she said, my mother is trying to lose weight. My mother's in her, I believe it was 70s or 80s. I can't remember exactly what the age was, but it was aging population, right? And she said, can you help her with nutrition? Because I'd like her to be eating healthy to make sure that she's losing weight properly. And she works out. She's still exercising. She's lifting weights. And I said, this is fantastic. I'd love to talk to her. We got on one call. That's all I ever coached her. One call, one time. And I got to meet her. We talked on a call. It was a Zoom type thing. And I said, okay, so what I want you to do is just give me an idea of what you're eating, right? Tell me about the foods you eat. What do you like? And she said, okay, here's what I eat. And it was so protein deficient. Everything was cereals type based. It was carbohydrate high for sure. There was very little fats even of essential value. It was mostly a carbohydrate diet. Again, in relative to what most people understand as healthy eating. So a lot of veggies, a lot of fruit, a lot of grains, and all of the what we'd call healthy carbs, but there wasn't much of anything in the form of protein. So I said, tell me about the foods that would be protein based that you like. And she started throwing out things like eggs. Well, I have one egg in the morning, one boiled egg or whatever. And it's like you could see that there were some introductions of protein, but it was so deficient. So I said, all I want to do with you is I don't want to take anything away. I want to add to what you're doing. So I'm going to ask you to take all the proteins that we have, and we listed them. So for breakfast, it was egg. And for lunch, it was, whatever it was, turkey breast or whatever she was having. It was very minimal though, like, bird-sized portions to feed a human, who has the aging factor of muscle, degrading. We wanted to get her on the anabolic side. I need to get this lady building. So one conversation, she goes and I said, I need you to take those things and we need to increase the portions of what you're already eating. And I had her agree to doing 2 egg or 3 egg and, continuing to work her way up and use egg whites if it was possible. And then I had her using supplement like protein shake if she needed because her appetite was there, or wasn't there. So use the shake. As we got her down and by the end of the call, she basically looked at it and said, so what you're really telling me is I need to increase all my protein. I said, that's it. Everything else will fall into place, trust me. And that was it. That was the last time I talked to her. I got an update a few weeks later saying my mom is loving the program, right? This from my client. Mom's loving the program. She's actually losing weight and feeling really good, and she's still lifting her weights. I got another message, which was about a month to month and a half later, and it was from the mom in my email, which I didn't even know she had my email. She must have got it from my client. She messaged and said, I want to thank you for that conversation, that coaching. You literally changed my life. She said, I feel better than I've ever felt. I'm lifting more weights now in my workouts than I was lifting before. And not because I told her to, just because she felt she had to, like she needed, her strength was gaining. But she said, the strength has been going up. And she said, my weight has been going down as far as body fat reduction, everything. So the weight loss and the muscle building were taking place for her at the same time. And she was in her, like, I believe 70s to 80s as far as aging goes. And protein changed the game. It was literally, protein was the one macronutrient that she was missing. And by just reintroducing it at higher amounts, she turned her entire journey around and messages me saying, you changed my life with one conversation. So guys who are listening to the podcast right now, know that this is that one conversation for you. Protein can change your life, especially over the age of 40. It becomes more and more important. So Coach Aaron, based on that story, if you have a story of your own from a client or any feedback on that journey, what do you think?
So my damn internet, you pay so much money for internet, and then was it glitchy on your side or was it just mine? I was probably just sitting here frozen, looked like I was listening, but you were like cutting in and out. I could barely make out what you were saying.
Okay.
So, but I got the gist. I think I got the gist of it. Yeah, I mean, long story short, get in your protein, ladies and gentlemen. It's so crucial, and so many people are deficient in it. I mean, it just helps for the repair, like we're talking about. Even stuff like, my mom and some of my clients are worried about, like, their blood sugar regulation, and making sure, they're not getting too high on their fasting glucose and stuff like that. But if you have your protein in the meal before your carbohydrates, it's going to help stabilize that blood sugar. And we're finding so much more, a lot of these problems and health conditions that people are having nowadays are just really related to increased, too much insulin and blood sugar, and pre-diabetic type conditions and stuff. So
Hmm.
yeah, so get in the protein. Just not only is it going to make you feel more satiated, it's going to help you maintain your muscle mass, which I think your stats were right on point. It's like a percent, per year, which is like 10% over a decade, which over a couple decades adds up to a lot of
Mm.
decline and atrophy in your muscles when you start getting into your 50s, 60s, 70s, and beyond. So you really need to pay that much more attention to getting it in and continuing your strength training as well.
Beautiful. That's great, brother. And yeah, you look like you were attentively listening. It's all good.
Okay, good. I was frozen like this. I was so intent. I was just like internet frozen face.
Yeah, he's into my story, man. This is fantastic. He's stoked.
I'm into it. I
So
was. I
that's
was.
awesome. I like that you talked about the muscle sparing, of course. Protein's going to keep that muscle that you've already worked for, you've already earned. It's going to keep that, and it's going to allow you to continue to build if you continue to weight train or create resistance and adaptation. Protein will be there to rebuild and repair. Like we said at the beginning of the day, clean up the disasters, right? So this lady was still 70, 80 years old and still working out, trying to tear it and repair it, baby. And that's what she was going for, right? So I wanted to touch on the next attribute of the protein, and that is when we talk about sources, we've listed chicken, we've listed fish, we've listed, a lot of it. There are also people out there who are in the camp of, I don't eat meat. How else can I get protein? So for someone who's on the vegan or vegetarian side of the equation for their own personal beliefs or whatever, we're here to support you too. We want Coach Aaron to give us a couple examples, if you can, of like a vegetable or maybe nuts and seeds type thing where we can get protein from that. What would you use, or what would you recommend to a client who might be on that side of the argument?
Sure, you got the good old beans and rice, beans and rice, and then soy protein is also a complete protein as far as I can remember. Yeah, I think soy is complete, right? Got
Yep.
all the essential amino acids. And then we used to. There was a fallacy, and I think it's been disproven now, that soy was a large contributor to too much estrogen in the body for
Mm,
guys. So a lot of people would stay away from soy. Soy boy is a
yeah.
term, right?
Yeah.
So have you heard any research on that, whether that's should be avoided or not? I was always under the old school assumption: don't eat soy; it's going to give you estrogen
Yeah.
stuff. And then I've heard recently that is not necessarily the case. So you might not have to be so fearful of it.
Same here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those old myths of the female hormone generating estrogen dominance
Mm.
in soy protein, but it is just a plant-based source, and it's good that Coach Aaron brought that up. When we talk about protein, there's incomplete protein and complete protein. What that means is that it's got all the essential amino acids. With a profile of like 21 amino acids, 9 of them are essential. The body can't create them on its own. So to get what we call a complete protein, you have to have all 9 essential amino acids present in that, which most often will be your animal meats. That's why we really, focus on those ones the most. But for someone who's in the vegetarian side, our best advice is going to be to get multiple different sources of protein in your day. That way you can complete the amino acid profile. So if there's something that doesn't quite contain all 9 essentials, you may get the others from something else. So for example, rice or beans, or they may combine to make all 9 essential aminos to make a complete protein. So it's just a matter of having variety. Don't stress over it. Just make sure you've got variety in your proteins that you bring in, because you're getting them from vegetable base or plant based. But I also like nuts and seeds for value on there. And then I get some people who are vegetable based, but they like to use some of the dairy protein that you can get. They're still okay with using that. They might eat dairy. And so my 2 favorites are cottage cheese and Greek yogurt. Those are quick and easy, high protein. What do you think? Do you use those
Yeah.
ones, Coach?
I don't because I've always kind of I had a milk intolerance when I was younger, and I've kind of outgrown it a little bit. Like I can still get away with having splurging on a little ice cream now and then without it killing me or making me all stuffy in the nose like it used to when I was a kid. So, but I don't have it on a regular basis. But I do like cottage cheese and the Greek yogurt as well. And
Nice.
then there's another one I just heard a term called vegan whey. That's a lot of if you're looking for like a whey is a complete protein that vegans wouldn't have because they don't do the dairy. So they could do like a brown rice and a pea protein combo is called like a vegan whey alternative. I
Hmm.
thought that was kind of cool.
Nice. That's a good tip. Right on. I haven't even seen that one myself, like a vegan way. I'll check that out. That's cool.
Yeah.
Right on. Well, that takes us to the end of segment four. So, last segment of the day, segment five, is consequences of protein deficiency and benefits of optimal protein intake. Well, we've covered a lot of these throughout the day already. Protein deficiency can lead to muscle wasting, weakened immune functions, and impaired wound healing. This is something I wanted Coach Aaron to just talk about a little bit because wound healing, old injuries from MMA, old injuries. What's protein doing for you to keep you on the winning side, Coach?
Yeah, so that's a whole nother podcast topic right there. But I mean, gosh, one of the key points that I would recommend for a lot of people is just that, I mean, the joints, connective tissue, tendons, ligaments, all that stuff really takes those building blocks to be able to repair itself, right? So I like to add a lot of like collagen and even like gelatin into the mix into my protein repertoire because there's certain amino acids that are present. Again, going back to the complete and incomplete proteins, but the stuff the proteins that you find in collagen and the gelatin and stuff, a lot of those specific types of aminos are missing in the other types. So if you can combine the two, you're not you're not missing anything.
Hmm.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't do collagen. But if you're a aging 40, 50-year-old guy with maybe some old creaky shoulders and joints and stuff, it's really good for the joints, connective tissue, as well as it makes your hair grow really nice and thick like mine too. So
That's beautiful. I know you
yeah.
told me you were getting your hair and makeup done before the show today, so
Right.
I couldn't
Yep.
wait to see.
But it does. It makes like your nails thicker and grow faster and stuff. That collagen in it and stuff
Mhm.
really works.
Right, and it's true. It is a lot of that cosmetic, and a lot of guys will say, "Well, I don't really give a shit about the cosmetic side." But listen, guys, it's very beneficial to look on the outside the way you feel, and you want to feel on the inside as well. So the better you're looking, the more confident you become. You look in the mirror, you see what you like to see. Like we started today with our flexes, you want to be able to look and see those gains that you're getting, and that's why we love the summer shred we're doing because the guys in here took their before photos. We're excited about what those after photos are going to look like. And we call these progress photos because after is still not the end of the line. My alarm's going off, which means we have reached the end of the hour. So, Coach Aaron and I are doing something here, a little test on ourselves to see how we can hold the conversation and keep it within a time limit because we get, just having a good time here talking about things and we love getting to, to connect and have our conversations on different topics. But we got so many great topics coming up for you guys in the next, year that we don't want to spend too much time going overboard on one particular topic. We can even divide it into multiple sittings. So we appreciate each and every one of you who are listening to the show. I want to give one final thought and on the topic thing. And it is this: consuming adequate protein may also enhance your metabolism. These are the takeaways, okay? Metabolism, improved satiety, leaving you full, feeling full longer, promoting weight loss by allowing you to reduce calorie intake, and enhancing fat burning because of the thermic effect of food. Protein has a lot of benefits for you. If you write down just those last things we said right there, that encapsulates pretty much everything we talked about today. But definitely listen to the episode, rewind, listen to pieces of it as you need, because there's so much value in there. So, Coach Aaron, any final thoughts on the protein aspect? And we talked about protein shakes. I'm not drinking a protein shake today, but we should finish with a good cheers here as well. But we'll do a cheers and then give us any final closing thoughts. Cheers to the ultimate
That
man
was it.
out there. Closing thoughts,
Cheers.
Coach.
Cheers. Closing thoughts. If you want to get lean and mean and you need some help on your fitness journey, hit us up, drop a comment below or hit us up on social. We got our summer shred just launched, and like you said, we're ready to rock and roll for the next 12 weeks. So we've got one more week to jump in for the win, and we'll help you out. So hit us up if you need some help.
It's been another great episode. Thanks for joining us, everybody in the Ultimate Man community out there. Share this episode, as Coach said. And on that note, how about we do a flex and then we bring it in? Everybody who's watching, get it up there. Let's go. Right on. Bring it in, boys. Another great week.